Gemini, a guide to healing your shadow self and becoming a whole person. There are moments in life when even the brightest souls find themselves haunted by shadows. For Gemini, a sign often celebrated for its lightness, adaptability, and sparkling intellect, the shadow can be even more difficult to face. People see you as quick, witty, curious, endlessly engaging. Yet behind an ever-changing smile, there may be wounds you've hidden even from yourself. Healing is not about denying these darker places, but about walking courageously into them with love and awareness. Imagine your inner world as a house with many rooms. Some are filled with laughter, light, and music, while others remain locked, heavy with silence. To become whole is to open every door, even the ones you fear. It's about listening to the parts of you that long to be acknowledged instead of dismissed. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about integration, compassion, and embracing your full humanity. When Gemini learns to weave the restless duality into a tapestry of acceptance, an extraordinary transformation happens. The shadow no longer sabotages, but supports. The hidden self no longer whispers in shame, but sings in harmony with the rest of you. In this exploration, we'll walk together through the path of shadow healing, guided by astrological wisdom, psychology, and soulful reflection. If these words resonate with you, let your heart stay open. And if you find comfort or insight along the way, consider sharing this message with others who may need it too. Like, subscribe, and join our growing circle, because healing deepens when it is witnessed and shared. For Gemini, the shadow often hides behind words, behind endless thoughts, behind the ability to change shape and move swiftly from one space to another. The gift of adaptability, when unbalanced, can become a mask that keeps you from sitting with your own pain. You may find yourself talking your way out of feelings, rationalizing your deepest hurts, or keeping conversations light when your heart aches for something raw and real. The shadow self is not something foreign. It is a part of you, a mirror of the very qualities that make you radiant. Your brilliance with language can also cut you down with inner criticism. Your love of freedom can make you resist intimacy. Your boundless curiosity can lead to scattering energy instead of focusing it on true healing. Healing the Gemini shadow begins with slowing down the mind and becoming honest with the dualities you live in every day. This is not easy, because Gemini energy thrives on movement, stimulation, and new experiences. Yet the shadow demands stillness. Imagine sitting quietly in a darkened room, with no one to distract you, no screen to absorb your thoughts, no words to hide behind. What would surface? Perhaps you would hear the voice of the inner child, the part of you that longed for consistency, that sometimes felt abandoned or misunderstood. Perhaps you would feel the sting of not being taken seriously, of being seen as clever but not deep. Many Geminis carry wounds of invalidation, growing up too fast, learning to laugh instead of cry, using intellect to shield vulnerability. When you begin to listen to these forgotten voices, something profound happens. Instead of scattering your energy outward, you draw it back home. Practices such as journaling can help you translate the language of your shadow into words you can understand. Free writing without censoring yourself allows the subconscious to spill onto the page, revealing the emotions you've tucked away behind humor and cleverness. Meditation may feel unnatural at first, but offers a pause you need to notice the stories running in your mind, many of which are simply echoes from the past, not truths of the present. Therapy or deep conversation with someone you trust can create the space where your words are no longer a performance, but an unveiling of your true self. Consider the example of a Gemini I once worked with. Let's call her Maya. On the surface, she was vibrant, charismatic, the kind of person everyone wanted to be around. Yet in her private moments, she confessed to a deep loneliness. She would fill her calendar with social gatherings, but inside she longed for someone to truly see her, not just a witty character she presented. As she began the work of shadow healing, she practiced sitting in silence for a few minutes each day, journaling her fears and challenging herself to express vulnerability in conversations. At first, it was terrifying. She felt exposed, awkward, even foolish. But slowly, her relationships began to deepen. Instead of being admired for her lightness alone, she was loved for her authenticity. Her shadow became the bridge to intimacy rather than the barrier. The path of integration is about reclaiming the rejected parts of yourself and inviting them back into the whole. For Gemini, this means learning that you don't have to choose between being lighthearted or serious, free or committed, clever or sincere. You are allowed to be all of it. Your contradictions are not flaws. They are facets of your humanity. By acknowledging the shadow, you expand into wholeness. And as you begin to live from this integrated space, you stop running from your depth and instead discover that within the quiet, your truest wisdom has always been waiting for you. If Gemini's shadow often hides in the mind, the next step of healing is to bring that awareness into the body. The body never lies. While words can twist, distract, or avoid, your physical being records every experience, every unspoken hurt, every moment of suppressed truth. For Gemini, whose energy is quick, airy, and mental, this connection to the body can be one of the greatest challenges. And yet, it is also one of the most powerful pathways to wholeness. You may notice tension in your shoulders after a day of pretending everything is fine, or a tightness in your chest when you silence your true feelings. These sensations are not random. They are the shadow speaking to the body, urging you to pay attention. To begin healing, cultivate practices that anchor you in physical presence. Simple breath work can be transformative for Gemini, because the breath bridges the air element of your sign with the grounded reality of your body. Try inhaling deeply into the belly, holding for a moment, and then releasing with intention, as though you are exhaling the stories you've told yourself that no longer serve you. Movement is also essential. Whether it's dance, yoga, tai chi, or simply walking in nature, moving your body with awareness helps release trapped emotions and reconnects you with parts of yourself that words cannot reach. The mind may argue or overanalyze, but the body teaches you how to feel again. I once met a Gemini named Daniel who had spent years in intellectual pursuit, reading philosophy, debating spirituality, analyzing every aspect of life. Brilliant as he was, he carried an invisible heaviness. He would often laugh, but his laughter felt sharp, almost as if it covered an inner ache. When he began practicing yoga, at first it frustrated him. His mind raced, his body trembled. He wanted to skip ahead to the next pose. But over time, something shifted. As he stayed with the discomfort, memories surfaced, moments from childhood when he felt unheard, times when he performed joy to mask fear. Instead of pushing them away, he breathed through them. He realized that healing wasn't in solving the riddle of his pain, but in feeling it fully. His body became the vessel that taught him presence, something his mind could never grasp alone. For Gemini, the shadow often contains unacknowledged grief. Because you are so skilled at moving forward, changing directions, and finding the next adventure, you may avoid fully mourning what has been lost. Yet unexpressed grief lingers in the body like a ghost. To honor your wholeness, you must give yourself permission to weep, to rage, to tremble, to let your body release what your mind has minimized. This is not weakness. It is sacred strength. Each tear, each sigh, each shiver is a thread weaving your shadow back into light. Remember, wholeness is not about eliminating the shadow. It is about letting it breathe, giving it a seat at the table of your being. When you integrate body and mind, thought and feeling, movement and stillness, you begin to embody the fullness of who you are. For Gemini, this balance creates a profound liberation. No longer split between dualities. You move as one being, fluid, authentic, and free. And from this grounded place, your mind becomes sharper, your communication clearer, your relationships deeper, because your words are no longer floating. They are rooted in truth. As you deepen into this journey of shadow healing, Gemini, another layer reveals itself, the realm of relationships. Because your sign is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, your life is deeply interwoven with the bonds you create through words, ideas, and exchange. Relationships are often mirrors, reflecting not only the beauty of your light, but also the hidden corners of your shadow. The way you interact with others becomes a sacred field where integration takes place. To heal the shadow within, you must learn to recognize how it plays out in your connections. Often, Geminis are loved for their charm, wit, and ability to make people feel alive in conversation. Yet the shadow can emerge as inconsistency, avoidance, or fear being pinned down. You may withdraw when emotions become too heavy, or shift your identity slightly to fit into the dynamic. losing touch with your authentic self. These patterns are not flaws. They are adaptations, survival strategies that once kept you safe. But as you grow, they can limit your intimacy, leaving you feeling unseen even in the presence of others. Healing in relationships begins with radical honesty. This does not mean spilling every thought without filter, but rather daring to reveal the emotions you most fear will push others away. Vulnerability, for Gemini, is the medicine that softens the restless need to please or perform. It might mean telling a friend, "I feel lonely even in this crowd," or admitting to a partner, "Sometimes I hide behind my words because I'm afraid you won't love the real me." These moments of truth create cracks in the mask, allowing authentic connection to flow through. Take the story of a Gemini named Claire. She had spent years in friendships where she was the entertainer, the one who always kept spirits high. Yet inside, she longed for deeper bonds. When she began practicing shadow integration, she challenged herself to express disappointment, sadness, and fear instead of covering them with humor. At first, some friends drifted away, unprepared for this new depth. But the ones who remained began to meet her in that honesty, offering her the acceptance she had always craved. She discovered that her shadow wasn't something to be hidden in relationships, but the very doorway through which true love could enter. For Gemini, wholeness and connection also requires boundaries. Because you are curious and attuned to the energies around you, you may absorb others' moods or shift yourself to maintain harmony. But this chameleon-like quality can blur your sense of self. Healing means remembering that you can honor others without losing yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They are sacred containers that protect your authenticity. By saying no when needed, by naming your limits, you allow your yes to carry more truth. Relationships become laboratories of transformation when you choose presence over performance. The shadow may whisper that you will be rejected if you show your full self. But the truth is that only by being fully seen can you experience the intimacy you long for. Each time you risk honesty, each time you breathe through the discomfort of being known, you are reclaiming another piece of your shadow. And as you do, your connections shift from shallow exchanges to soulful bonds. You realize that your words are not just clever tools. They are bridges of light carrying the essence of your soul into the heart of another, beyond the realms of self-reflection and relationships. Gemini's shadow healing also calls for a deeper exploration of purpose. For a sign that thrives on ideas, versatility, and endless curiosity, the shadow often appears as restlessness, a feeling of never quite arriving, of scattering energy across too many paths without anchoring into one. This can create a quiet ache inside, the sense that no matter how much you learn, explore, or achieve, something essential remains missing. The truth is, the shadow of Gemini is not a lack of talent or intelligence. It is a fear of commitment, the avoidance of stillness, the reluctance to choose one direction in case it means losing another. Healing this part of the shadow begins by reframing purpose not as a single destination, but as a living thread that weaves through everything you do. Instead of searching for the one calling, recognize that your purpose is expressed in every conversation where you bring light, every idea you share that sparks another's imagination, every moment you bridge perspectives that others could not connect. Purpose is not always grand or linear. For Gemini, it is the art of making meaning out of the everyday, of using your gift of words and vision to heal, inspire, and awaken. But the shadow resists by whispering, "What if you choose wrong? What if you are not enough?" These doubts can keep you spinning, moving from project to project, relationship to relationship, without settling long enough to see your own seeds bloom. The healing lies in embracing focus, not as a cage, but as a sacred container that allows your brilliance to take root. Think of a garden. Scattering seeds across the wind may be beautiful, but planting them in one place allows them to grow strong, to feed you, to endure. I once knew a Gemini named Lucas who had tried on countless roles: writer, teacher, musician, healer. Each time he grew restless, convinced he had chosen the wrong path. He abandoned it for the next. Eventually, he realized that each of these callings was not separate, but threads of the same tapestry. When he stopped running and allowed himself to integrate his passions, he created workshops that combined storytelling, music, and spiritual teaching. His purpose was never one thing. It was a harmony of many, anchored by his willingness to stay present long enough to bring them together. His shadow of restlessness transformed into a gift of multidimensional Gemini. Your healing lies in giving yourself permission to stay, to linger in the silence after a conversation, to remain in a project long enough to see its fruit, to let relationships deepen instead of escaping at the first sign of complexity. Purpose unfolds in time, not in haste. And when you begin to anchor, your duality finds balance. The airy wings of your curiosity meet the steady ground of your devotion. Wholeness emerges as you learn that freedom and commitment are not enemies. They are partners, dancing together to create a life of both depth and expansion. As the journey of shadow healing unfolds, Gemini, the final step is integration. The art of weaving all that you discover back into a life that feels whole, authentic, and deeply alive. You've faced a restless mind and learned to sit in stillness. You've listened to the voice of the body, releasing grief and allowing emotion to flow freely. You've dared to show your vulnerability in relationships, choosing truth over performance. You've embraced purpose not as a fixed destination, but as a living thread that anchors your gifts. Now comes the most sacred part, becoming one with yourself. For Gemini, wholeness is not about erasing contradictions, but about celebrating them. You are both the childlike wanderer and the wise storyteller, both the playful friend and the seeker of truth, both the free spirit and the devoted soul. Integration means you no longer exile parts of yourself to the shadow. You invite them all to sit together, to form a council within your being. The restless voice is given space alongside the grounded one. The playful self holds hand with the serious self. Instead of fighting for dominance, they begin to harmonize. To embody this, create rituals of self-unity. Each morning, speak to yourself as if addressing a beloved friend. All of me is welcome here. Each evening, reflect on where your shadow showed up during the day, not to judge, but to honor its presence. In creativity, allow your contradictions to inspire art, writing, or expression that reveals your complexity. In relationships, let your duality be a gift that teaches others how to hold paradox without fear. This daily practice of integration transforms shadow work from a concept into a lived reality. One Gemini I knew, Sophia, exemplified this beautifully. For years, she struggled with the sense that she was too much, too talkative, too changeable, too contradictory. She tried to silence part of herself to conform to expectations, but it only left her exhausted and disconnected. When she began embracing her shadow, she discovered that her contradictions were the source of her creativity. She wrote poetry that captured both the ache and the joy of being human. She spoke with friends not just about lighthearted things, but about the mysteries of the soul. She stopped apologizing for being complex and instead celebrated it. The very qualities she once rejected became the essence of her wholeness. Gemini, your shadow is not an enemy to be defeated, but a partner to be embraced. By honoring every part of yourself, you step into your true power, the ability to live as a whole being, radiant in your authenticity. You stop fragmenting into masks and begin moving to the world as one luminous presence. And in doing so, you not only heal yourself, you become a mirror for others, showing them that wholeness is possible, that the shadow is not darkness but unlit light waiting to shine. Gemini, the path of shadow healing is not a straight line. It is a spiral, a dance that leads you deeper into yourself with each step. Along the way, you'll face a mind that once ran too fast, the body that carried unspoken grief, the relationships that reflected your masks, and the purpose that often seemed elusive. You'll discover that healing is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you already are, a soul of light and depth woven together by paradox, capable of holding both laughter and sorrow, freedom and devotion, clarity and mystery. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means you are willing to sit with every part of yourself, even the ones you once pushed away. It means you can look into the mirror of your own being and say, yes, this is me, all of me, and I am worthy of love. When you stop running from the shadow, it transforms. What once whispered in fear begins to sing in harmony. What once fractured your energy now unites it. You become not half of yourself, not a mask for others, but a whole person rooted, radiant, and real. As you walk forward from here, carry with you the knowledge that your duality is not a curse, but a gift. The same mind that scatters can also weave brilliant connections. The same heart that feared intimacy can become a beacon of truth. The same shadow that once haunted you is now your ally, reminding you that light shines brighter when it embraces its contrast. This is the essence of your journey, to live not in fragments, but in wholeness. If these words have stirred something within you, let them continue to ripple outward. Share your reflections, your own stories of shadow and light, in the comments below. Your voice matters, and when we speak our truths, we create a web of healing that extends far beyond ourselves. Like and subscribe if you feel called to stay connected to this circle of wisdom, where each message is a reminder that you are never alone in this journey. Together, we are learning to embrace our shadows, to honor our light, and to step into the wholeness we were always meant to embody.